Hey everyone, I noticed a lot of you who are watching and enjoying the content aren't subscribed yet. If you love spine-chilling stories, creepy encounters, and unexplained mysteries, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on the next terrifying upload. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you more of the content you love. Alright, so I've been hesitant to tell this story, but it's been on my mind for months, and it feels like something I should share. This happened a while back, and I still can't shake off the feeling that it was more than just a weird encounter. If you think this is going to be some cheesy bad date story, just wait. You might end up thinking differently by the end. So, it all started like any other typical night. I was browsing through Tinder, like most people do when they're bored or just looking to pass some time. I wasn't looking for anything serious at first, just chatting with a few people, maybe grabbing a drink if I felt like it. I'd been on Tinder before, and I've had my fair share of weird messages and awkward encounters, but nothing that would make me lose my faith in dating apps. At least not yet. Then I came across this guy. His name was Mark, and his profile seemed normal. He wasn't over the top with his pictures, no weird poses or filters. Just a few simple, well-lit photos of him hiking, hanging out with friends, and one of him at a concert, looking like he was genuinely enjoying himself. His bio was short, saying something like, "Just here to meet cool people and see where it goes." Nothing suspicious. It was basic, but in a good way. I'd seen enough Tinder profiles to know when something felt real. He seemed like someone who wasn't just on there to mess around. We started chatting, and the conversation was surprisingly good. We had some common interests, and he wasn't sending those cringy pickup lines that most people use. It was just regular, easy conversation. We joked about random stuff and even talked about our favorite movies and bands. Honestly, I didn't get any weird vibes from him. The longer we talked, the more comfortable I felt. After a few days of texting back and forth, we decided to meet up. We picked a bar in my neighborhood. It was a quiet little place, not too fancy, but just enough to have a chill drink. Perfect for a first date, I thought. We agreed on 8 p.m., and I made sure to show up a little early to check the place out. Just to make sure it wasn't some sketchy spot. I walked in and immediately spotted him sitting by the window. He waved, and I waved back, feeling pretty good about the whole thing. He stood up when I got to the table, and I noticed how tall he was. I'm 5 feet 6 inches, so most guys look tall to me, but this guy seemed a lot taller than I expected. I thought it was a little strange, but I brushed it off. Maybe he was just wearing some boots or something. We ordered drinks, nothing fancy, just beer for him and a gin and tonic for me. The first few minutes were spent exchanging pleasantries, but it quickly turned into an actual conversation. He was funny, easy to talk to, and seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. I started to feel more relaxed as the night went on. The bar wasn't crowded, so we could talk without raising our voices. I started thinking that maybe, just maybe, this was going to turn into something good. But here's where things got weird. At some point, maybe an hour into the date, he excused himself to go to the bathroom. Nothing unusual about that. People need to pee. I didn't think much of it at first, but after a few minutes, I started wondering why he was taking so long. I checked my phone, nothing. I tried to distract myself by looking around the bar, but it was starting to feel off. I don't know why, but I felt like something was just not right. Maybe I was just overthinking it. After all, it wasn't like he was gone for hours. So I texted him. I didn't want to be that person, but I figured it was harmless to check if everything was okay. No reply. By the time 15 minutes passed, I started getting genuinely annoyed. He had already said he would be right back, and yet he wasn't. I looked at the door to the bathroom and waited for him to come through it, but no one came out. I was starting to feel a little weird. I even considered going to the bathroom to see if he was stuck in there, but I didn't want to be paranoid. After all, it could have just been a bathroom line, right? Still, something inside me was telling me to leave, so I decided to pull out my phone and check Tinder. I figured I'd send him another message, but when I opened the app, something odd happened. There was a message waiting for me, but it wasn't from the Mark I knew. The message came from a new account that had the exact same profile picture, the same name, same everything. The only difference? It was a brand new account, like someone had just created it. I clicked on the profile to check it out, and my heart dropped. The bio was the same, the photos were the same, but there was something unsettling about it. The account felt fake. The message itself was even stranger. It simply said, "You shouldn't have trusted me." I stared at it for what felt like forever, my mind trying to make sense of it. What the hell was going on? Who sent this? Was Mark messing with me, or was this some kind of weird joke? But something didn't add up. I kept looking back at the bathroom door, Still no sign of him. I had to leave. I could feel it. It wasn't even about the message anymore. It was about how everything was starting to feel off. I quickly grabbed my purse and walked out the door, hoping to get some fresh air and clear my head. But when I stepped outside, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. My mind raced, thinking about the message, about Mark, about the profile that had just popped up out of nowhere. I walked to my car, trying to act normal, but inside I was freaking out. I checked my phone again, almost hoping it was a mistake. But the message was still there, staring at me. I checked the profile again, and this time it was gone, vanished, just disappeared. No trace of the account anywhere. I sat in my car for a while, trying to calm down, but I couldn't. I felt like something had just happened that I couldn't explain. And the worst part? I couldn't even reach him to ask what the hell was going on. I tried texting him, but his number didn't go through. I tried calling, but it just rang with no answer. When I got home, I decided to try and shake it off. Maybe it was just a weird coincidence, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I kept thinking about it, rereading that message over and over in my head. I told myself it was just some sick joke, but then why did everything feel so wrong? The next morning, I checked Tinder again. I figured maybe I could get some closure by just looking him up, but there was nothing. His profile was gone, like it never existed. I searched for his name, his pictures, nothing. It was as if he had never been there in the first place. I thought about going to the bar and asking if anyone had seen him, but I felt like it would make me sound crazy. I didn't even know what to say. Hey, did this guy I met disappear after he went to the bathroom? Weeks went by, and I tried to forget about the whole thing. But every time I checked my phone, I half expected another message from that new account, the one that told me I shouldn't have trusted him. Every time I saw someone with a profile that looked too perfect, I would get a knot in my stomach. To this day, I don't know what happened. I don't know who sent that message or why Mark's profile disappeared without a trace, but I do know one thing for sure. I'll never trust Tinder the same way again. Or at least, I'll never let my guard down that easily. So, if you're reading this and using dating apps, just remember that not everything is as it seems. People can hide behind pictures and profiles, and sometimes there's a lot more lurking behind the screen than you think. I used to think those creepy dating stories were made up for attention, until I became one. It started last month when my friend Mark wouldn't stop bugging me about being single. He kept going on about his wife's friend who was just my type. After 3 weeks of constant nagging, I caved in. The restaurant was this mid-range Italian place downtown. Nothing fancy, but nice enough for a first date. I got there early, fidgeting with my napkin and checking my watch every few minutes. When Sarah walked in, she looked exactly like the photo Mark had shown me. Long dark hair, well-dressed, attractive. But something about her eyes made me uncomfortable. They were too intense, like she was scanning me, processing every detail. During dinner, I noticed weird things. She'd mentioned specific details about my life that I hadn't shared. She knew I'd switched from LA Fitness to Planet Fitness last month. She brought up my recent promotion at work. She even knew about my sister's new baby in Colorado. I tried to brush it off, thinking Mark and his wife must have told her, but the knot in my stomach kept growing. The real red flag came when she casually mentioned Max, my childhood golden retriever. I'd never posted about him online, and even Mark didn't know about Max. He was from before we met. When I asked how she knew, she just smiled and changed the subject. I made up an excuse about an early meeting and practically ran to my car. That night, my phone started blowing up. Messages from different numbers, all saying similar things. Had such a great time. Can't wait to see you again. You look cute when you're nervous. I blocked each number, but new ones kept coming. Then they got darker. You can't hide from me. We belong together. I'm always watching. By morning, my social media was flooded with follow requests from accounts I didn't recognize. Each profile picture was just slightly out of focus, but I could tell they were all her. I set everything to private and deleted my dating profiles. 3 days after the date, I was at work when my coworker asked who my girlfriend was. Apparently, she'd been standing outside our building for hours just staring up at my window. I'm on the 12th floor, but somehow she knew exactly where my desk was. Security went to check, but she vanished before they got there. The gym incident really shook me. I was on the treadmill when she appeared out of nowhere, taking the machine right next to me. She acted like it was completely normal, like we'd planned to meet there. I never told her which gym I went to. I left my workout mid-session, but when I got to my car, she was already in the parking lot, waving at me from her car. Things escalated when she showed up at my parents' house. They live 2 hours away in a small town, and I'd never mentioned them during our date. She told my mom we were engaged and started sharing detailed stories about our relationship. She knew about my dad's heart surgery last year and my mom's garden club meetings. When my mom called me, confused and concerned, I felt my blood run cold. I started staying at different friends' houses, never telling anyone where I'd be, but somehow she always found me. Every morning, I'd wake up to messages describing what I'd done the day before, what I was wearing, who I talked to. She knew when I skipped lunch, when I took different routes to work, even when I bought new clothes. The photos started arriving next. Me getting coffee, me at my desk, me asleep in my bed, all taken without my knowledge. Some were clearly shot through my windows, others seemed taken inside my apartment. I changed my locks 3 times, installed security cameras, but nothing helped. She was always one step ahead. When I went to the police, they said they needed more evidence. Then I found a USB drive on my kitchen counter in my locked apartment. It contained hundreds of photos of me going back months before our date. There were videos, too, recorded conversations I'd had in my own home. The police finally took it seriously. I did some research and discovered her real identity. Her name wasn't Sarah, it was Rebecca Thorne. She'd done this before to other men in nearby cities. Same pattern, one date, then months of stalking. Some had to move across the country to escape her. Last week, I finally got a restraining order, but it made no difference. Notes kept appearing in my apartment. Distance makes the heart grow fonder. You can't hide forever. We're meant to be together. The worst revelation came yesterday. I was talking to Mark about the whole situation, and he looked confused. He said he'd never set me up on a date. His wife didn't know any Sarah or Rebecca. The number that had texted me pretending to be Mark's wife was fake. The entire setup had been orchestrated by her. I'm in a hotel room now, throwing everything I own into suitcases. My phone hasn't stopped buzzing with messages from new numbers. The last one just came through. Your room has a nice view of the parking lot. Blue looks good on you. I ran out and got as far away as possible. TE police found my hotel room empty that night. My suitcases were still there, half packed, but I was gone. What they didn't find was any sign of struggle or forced entry. The security cameras in the hallway mysteriously stopped working for exactly 7 minutes. 3 days later, my car was discovered in a shopping center parking lot 2 states away. The only thing inside was a Polaroid photo of me and Sarah, no, Rebecca, smiling together at what looked like a cabin. On the back, in neat handwriting, finally together. I'm writing this now from somewhere I can't disclose. I managed to escape that night at the hotel, but barely. I saw her coming down the hallway as I was taking out the trash. Pure luck. I ran down the emergency stairs and didn't stop running until I was far away. The police are still looking for Rebecca Thorne, but she's good at disappearing. They found evidence linking her to 5 other missing men across 3 states. All of them started with a blind date. I'm safer now, but I still check over my shoulder everywhere I go. Because the truth is, I don't think she's given up. Sometimes when my phone buzzes with an unknown number, I wonder if she's still watching. I used to love scrolling through dating apps before bed. It was almost therapeutic, judging profiles, imagining possibilities, feeling that small rush when you match with someone attractive. That was until last October, when a match on Hinge turned my life into a nightmare I'm still trying to wake up from. His profile caught my attention immediately. Alex stood out from the usual gym selfies and fish pictures. His photos showed him on various hiking trails, playing with a gorgeous golden retriever and laughing with family at what looked like a backyard barbecue. His prompts were thoughtful. He wrote about wanting to find someone to explore hole-in-the-wall restaurants with, sharing his passion for landscape photography, and a funny story about getting lost in Japan. I remember thinking how refreshing it was to see someone put actual effort into their profile. After matching, our conversations flowed naturally. He asked intelligent questions about my marketing career and shared stories about his work as a software engineer. We had similar tastes in music, both loved trying new restaurants, and shared an obsession with finding the perfect cup of coffee. After a week of messaging, we planned to meet at Riverside Coffee, a popular cafe downtown. I remember feeling relieved when he looked exactly like his photos. He arrived wearing dark jeans and a blue button-down shirt that brought out his eyes. We ended up talking for 3 hours straight. He told me about growing up in Seattle, his close relationship with his sister, and his dreams of starting his own tech company. I shared stories about my crazy family, my love for photography, and my recent solo trip to Portugal. He seemed genuinely interested, asking follow-up questions and remembering small details. Over the next 2 weeks, we went on 3 more dates. First, he took me to this intimate Italian restaurant where he'd somehow snagged a corner table. the best seat in the house. The following weekend, we spent Sunday afternoon walking through Patterson Park, sharing stories and stopping to pet dogs. Our fourth date was at a new art gallery opening, where he impressed me with his knowledge of local artists. Everything felt perfect, maybe too perfect. The first odd moment came during our fifth date. We were having coffee, and he casually mentioned liking the little bakery near my apartment, Luna's. I hadn't told him about Luna's. When I mentioned this, he smoothly said he must have seen it on my Instagram. I didn't remember posting about it, but figured he was probably right. Then he brought up the bookstore where I worked on my laptop every Wednesday, another place I hadn't mentioned. He knew about the yoga studio I attended, even commenting on how convenient it was to my office. He referenced the plant nursery where I bought my succulents, the farmer's market I visited on Saturdays, even the trail where I went running. My heart started racing as I pieced it together. I went home and dug through my social media. My recent posts showed nothing, but then I found my archived Instagram highlights from months ago. There were casual mentions of these places, buried in stories I'd posted and forgotten about, stories from before we'd even matched on Hinge. What made it worse was realizing he must have been watching me for weeks, maybe months, before engineering our chance match on Hinge. He'd studied my routines, learned my habits, and crafted his profile to appeal to me. Those similar interests probably weren't coincidences. When I confronted him through text, his response was eerily calm. He admitted to finding my Instagram months ago and said he'd wanted to make sure we would be compatible before matching. He called it thorough research, said it proved how much he cared, mentioned he'd done the same with his previous girlfriends. I blocked him everywhere immediately, deleted Hinge, made all my social media private and warned my friends, but he already knew too much. The next few months became a blur of anxiety and paranoid checking over my shoulder. He started showing up everywhere, outside my office building, at my grocery store, in my coffee shop. Each time, he acted surprised to see me, like it was just a coincidence. He'd wave and smile as if nothing was wrong. I changed my routine completely. Started driving different routes to work, switched grocery stores, found new coffee shops, but he seemed to always figure out the new places. I'd see his car parked on my street at random hours. He'd send emails from new addresses, always polite, always asking why I was overreacting. The breaking point came during Christmas. I'd gone to my parents' house, 2 hours away from the city. I thought I'd finally have some peace. Then I saw him walking his dog past their house. Their house in a small town he had no reason to be in. He waved at me through the window like it was the most natural thing in the world. I got the restraining order the next day. The police finally took me seriously when I showed them the log I'd kept of every sighting, every new email, every coincidental encounter. They found evidence that he'd installed a tracking app on my phone during our fourth date when he'd offered to look up the artist we'd been discussing. It's been a year since the restraining order. He violated it once, leaving a letter in my new mailbox about how we were meant to be together. He spent 30 days in jail for that. I haven't seen him since, but sometimes I still feel watched. I've moved to a new city now, changed jobs, rarely post on social media. My therapist says I'm making progress, but I still check my phone for tracking apps weekly. Still vary my routine out of habit. Still feel my heart race when I see someone who looks like him. The dating app is still deleted. Maybe someday I'll feel safe enough to try again, but for now, the thought makes my stomach turn. Sometimes I think about how normal he seemed at first, how perfect those first few dates felt, how easily he turned my life upside down. I never thought a Bumble would lead me to change my phone number, move apartments, and constantly look over my shoulder. It's been 4 months since the incident, and I still can't shake the feeling of being watched. Let me start from the beginning. It was a regular Tuesday evening in October when I was swiping through profiles on Bumble. After an hour of the usual profiles, I came across one that stood out. The profile belonged to someone named Sarah, but instead of the typical selfies or group photos, her profile was filled with stunning nature photography. Each image captured something haunting: a fog-covered bridge at dawn, bare trees silhouetted against a blood-orange sunset, an empty park bench surrounded by fallen leaves. The photos were beautiful but somehow unsettling. Her bio was simple: I capture moments, looking for new inspiration. The artistic approach intrigued me, and after matching, we started messaging. Our conversations felt natural, discussing everything from obscure indie films to favorite hiking trails in the area. She was knowledgeable about photography and would describe techniques she used for different shots. After a few days of engaging conversations, I finally asked about the lack of personal photos. Her response seemed reasonable at first. She explained her passion for being behind the camera rather than in front of it, describing how she preferred capturing authentic moments. When she mentioned wanting to photograph people she met, adding that I might make an interesting subject, I thought it was just photographer talk. We planned to meet at Riverside Coffee that Saturday at 2 p.m. The days leading up to our date were normal. I went to work, hit the gym, met friends for drinks, my usual routine. Looking back, I should have noticed the small things. The feeling of being watched during my morning runs. The sound of a camera shutter that I dismiss as my imagination. The occasional glimpse of someone ducking behind corners. The morning before our planned date, I was grabbing my mail before heading to work. Inside my mailbox was a plain white envelope with no return address. I opened it while walking up the stairs to my apartment. Inside was a photograph that made me stop dead in my tracks. The image showed me leaving my apartment building that morning, coffee cup in hand, checking my phone. The photo was taken from across the street, partially concealed behind a parked van. The timestamp in the corner showed it was taken just 2 hours earlier. My hands were shaking as I rushed inside. I immediately checked our message thread, reading everything with new eyes. She had dropped hints I'd ignored, comments about how she liked to study her subjects before shooting them, how she believed true art comes from observation, even a casual remark about living in my neighborhood that I hadn't questioned at the time. Throughout that day at work, I received 3 more envelopes, each delivered to my desk by different courier services. The first showed me at the gym the previous evening, through the street-facing windows. The second was me having dinner with friends 2 nights ago. The third was the most disturbing, me sleeping in my bed, shot through my bedroom window from the building across the street. I called the coffee shop and canceled our date, making up an excuse about a family emergency. Within minutes, my phone buzzed with a new message. She sent a photo of me making that very phone call from my office, taken through the window of my 12th floor workplace. I went straight to the police station after work, taking a different route and constantly checking if I was being followed. The officers took my report, but seemed skeptical. Without knowing her real identity or having proof of direct threats, they said their hands were tied. They advised me to block her number and document any further contact. When I got home that evening, my entire mailbox was stuffed with photos, hundreds of them. Every moment of my life from the past 2 weeks captured in perfect detail. Me shopping for groceries, getting a haircut, meeting my sister for lunch, even mundane moments like checking the mail or waiting for the bus. Each photo was expertly composed, suggesting whoever took them had professional training. I spent that night at a hotel, but it didn't help. The next morning, slipped under my hotel room door was a new photo, me checking into the hotel just hours before. On the back was a message, "You can't hide from my lens." I deleted the dating app, changed my phone number, and stayed with friends for a week. When I returned home, my apartment had been broken into. Nothing was stolen, but all my photos, family pictures, travel memories, everything, had been replaced with her photos of me. Even my digital photos were gone from my laptop, replaced with a folder containing thousands of surveillance shots. That was when I decided to move. I found a new apartment across the city, installed a security system, and got a different job. For a while, things were quiet. I started to feel normal again. Then yesterday, another envelope arrived at my new address. Inside was a single photo of me packing boxes in my old apartment. The message on the back read, "Ready for our second shoot?" I'm not sure what to do anymore. The police still say they can't help without more evidence. I've hired a private investigator, but Sarah seems to vanish without a trace. Her dating profile is gone, and none of her photos match anything in reverse image searches. It's like she never existed. Every camera lens I see now looks threatening. Every clicking sound makes me jump. I don't know if I'll ever feel normal again, knowing someone out there has made documenting my life their artistic mission. I've been staring at my mailbox for 20 minutes from my window. The red flag is up. There's definitely something inside. My hands are trembling as I finally walk down to check it. Another unmarked envelope. This one's different though. Instead of the usual glossy photo paper, I pull out a thick stack of negatives and a handwritten note. The negatives contain every photo she's ever taken of me, hundreds of frames of my life through her lens. The note is simple. "You're not who I hoped you'd be. Project terminated." That was 3 weeks ago. No more photos have arrived. No more feeling of being watched. The private investigator found nothing, just dead ends and fake names. Sarah, if that was even her real name, has vanished completely. Her project apparently finished. I still have all the negatives stored in a box under my bed. Sometimes I take them out and hold them up to the light, trying to understand what made me such an interesting subject, and more importantly, why she decided I wasn't anymore. Last week, I heard from a friend about someone else in the city with a similar story, a guy who received mysterious photos for months before they suddenly stop. Sometimes I wonder how many others are out there, how many projects she's completed or terminated. I still check my mailbox every day, holding my breath each time I open it. Part of me hopes it stays empty, but another part wonders if somewhere out there, she's already found her next subject. Another profile with beautiful nature photos is probably online right now, waiting for someone else who won't see the warning signs. The clicking sounds haven't stopped, but now I'm pretty sure they're just in my head. I don't know if I've ever been more confused in my life. I still think about it months later, and I can't even explain what happened to anyone without sounding like a total weirdo. I honestly don't know where to start, but I guess it all began with a simple swipe on Hinge. Yeah, the dating app. Don't even get me started on how sketchy dating apps are in general, but I was bored one night and figured, why not? What's the worst that could happen? I've been on Hinge off and on for a while. It's one of those apps where you're supposed to connect over shared interests and personality instead of just looks, which is honestly refreshing. So when I saw Daniel's profile, I thought, this guy could be the one. He checks all the boxes. We matched and we started talking. And the conversation? Well, it was incredible. We had so much in common. Books, music, movies, everything you could imagine. It felt so natural, like we were instantly on the same wavelength, which I rarely feel with people online. His profile picture was low-key but cute. He was in a park, wearing a hoodie, with a relaxed smile that made him seem approachable. Honestly, he looked like someone I could imagine grabbing coffee with on a lazy Sunday morning. His bio was pretty basic, nothing that stood out too much, but there was something about him that just felt right. Maybe it was that we seemed to like all the same obscure indie bands, or that we had similar taste in movies. After a few days of chatting, I gave him my number. It's not that I usually rush to take things off the app, but we had been talking so much that it felt natural. Plus, he wasn't like every other guy I'd met online. He seemed different. He seemed like someone who could actually hold a conversation, not just talk about random superficial stuff like what I do for a living or where I've been traveling. We got into some deep conversations, which was honestly kind of refreshing. But then things started to get weird. It didn't happen all at once. At first, it was small things, like he would mention certain books I liked or songs I'd been listening to recently. But then he started getting more specific, like the time I told a friend that I hated wearing the color blue because it made me feel invisible. I'd only said that to one person, and it wasn't something I'd posted anywhere or even mentioned in passing to anyone else. But Daniel brought it up in a message. He was like, I think blue is a weird color. You said it once, remember? It's kind of like it makes you fade into the background. And I'm sitting there completely freaked out. How did he know that? I never told him, but still, I brushed it off. Maybe he'd overheard me talking about it to a friend, or maybe it was a weird coincidence. I mean, I didn't want to jump to conclusions, right? But that feeling didn't go away. And then things just got even stranger. One night, I mentioned in passing that I had just finished reading a book. I'd found it in a second-hand bookstore the week before, and I'd been reading it slowly in the evenings. It was a mystery novel, not something I'd mentioned to anyone else. But the next day, Daniel messaged me and started talking about the book like he had just read it himself. And not just a casual mention, he knew the plot, the characters, the whole thing. The weirdest part? I hadn't even posted about it online, and I definitely hadn't mentioned it to him before. It made me feel sick to my stomach. Still, I kept telling myself it was a coincidence. Maybe he'd seen me talk about it on social media, or maybe he'd guessed it somehow. But I didn't feel right. I couldn't explain it, but something in the pit of my stomach told me that this wasn't normal. Then came the real kicker. One day, he mentioned something so personal, it was almost impossible to ignore. I had this weird, recurring dream I'd been having for weeks. I'd posted about it on my private Snapchat, which I only used to talk to my closest friends. The dream itself was bizarre and unsettling, but what freaked me out wasn't the dream. It was the fact that Daniel described it in detail, as if he had been there with me. He talked about the specific details, the locations, the people in the dream, the exact feelings I had in it, and I never told him about any of it. How could he possibly know? That's when I finally decided to ask him. I was like, okay, this is getting weird. How do you know all this stuff about me? Things I've never told you, things I haven't even posted online. But when I confronted him, he just gave me this weird, calm response. He said something about how he just liked to remember the little things. He said it was a gift, that he liked to really understand people by remembering the smallest details. I wasn't convinced. I mean, What kind of gift was that? How could anyone remember things like that unless they'd been watching me closely? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I didn't know anything about him. His profile didn't even have a last name. He didn't share anything about his job or where he lived. I thought that was kind of strange, but again, I chalked it up to him being private. Everyone's got their reasons, right? But now it was starting to feel less like privacy and more like a cover-up. I started to look through my own social media accounts. Just out of curiosity, I tried to search for him, maybe to see if he was hiding his profile somewhere. But I couldn't find him. There was nothing. No Facebook, no Instagram, no LinkedIn, no trace of him. And that felt wrong. I mean, how could someone have no online presence at all? Especially someone who was so aware of my life. That didn't add up. I was done. I couldn't take it anymore. So, I blocked him. I thought that would be the end of it. But he didn't stop. He texted me from a different number, asking why I had blocked him. The messages, but the last one he sent, it still makes my blood run cold. He said, "Why did you block me? I thought we had something real." I didn't reply. I just kept blocking him over and over, but every time I did, he'd find another way to reach out. Eventually, I just deleted my number from my phone entirely and told my friends what had happened. They were all concerned, but no one could really offer a concrete explanation. There wasn't any rational explanation for it, honestly. It's been months now, but I still think about it. I still wonder how much Daniel really knew about me, how he was able to get so much information about me without me ever sharing it. I guess I'll never really know, and maybe that's what bothers me the most. He knew things about me that only someone who had been following me, watching me, would know. I can't shake the feeling that he was always there, in the background, waiting for the right moment to strike. The last one he sent, it still makes my blood run cold. He said, "Why did you block me? I thought we had something real." I didn't reply. I just kept blocking him over and over, but every time I did, he'd find another way to reach out. Eventually, I just deleted my number from my phone entirely and told my friends what had happened. They were all concerned, but no one could really offer a concrete explanation. There wasn't any rational explanation for it, honestly. It's been months now, but I still think about it. I still wonder how much Daniel really knew about me, how he was able to get so much information about me without me ever sharing it. I guess I'll never really know, and maybe that's what bothers me the most. He knew things about me that only someone who had been following me, watching me, would know. I can't shake the feeling that he was always there, in the background, waiting for the right moment to strike. I should have trusted my gut that night. I really should have. I didn't know it then, but everything about this blind date was about to go way off the rails in ways I couldn't even begin to imagine. It started with my friend James setting me up with this girl named Amanda. He was always trying to play matchmaker, and honestly, I'd never had much luck with dates. So, when he said she was perfect for me, I figured why not? I mean, sure, he had a bit of a track record of being wrong about these things, but how bad could it be? Amanda offered to pick me up, which seemed fine at the time. Normally, I'd meet someone at the restaurant or whatever, but she insisted, and I didn't think much of it. Plus, she seemed super chill on text, nothing weird at all. Just a couple of short messages back and forth about meeting up, some light banter. Nothing made me think twice. When she pulled up to my house, I was already standing outside. Her car was a beat-up old sedan, nothing fancy. I noticed a few bumper stickers and a cracked windshield, but again, no big deal. I slid into the passenger seat, giving her a polite smile as I buckled my seatbelt. At first, everything seemed normal. She smiled and waved, and we chatted for a bit. She was pretty, maybe not exactly what I expected from the pictures James had shown me, but still cute enough. I figured this was going to be one of those fun, easy-going dates. Then, as I looked around the interior of her car, something strange caught my eye. The locks on the doors were all busted, like completely broken. I mean, I could see that they'd been tampered with. There was no way the locks had just broken on their own. They were clearly jammed, and the buttons had been ripped out of the door panels. I couldn't help but notice it, especially because the way she was driving made me feel off. She was taking back roads that didn't seem to go anywhere, like she was intentionally avoiding the main streets. I tried to brush it off as nothing. Maybe she had car trouble or something. But then, she said something that stuck with me even after the night got crazier. She mentioned, almost casually, that no one really knows where we are. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was just trying to be funny. But then I started thinking, why would she say that? And why did it feel like we were getting farther away from civilization? I started looking out the window, trying to figure out where we were, but everything was just trees and old houses. No street signs, no lights. It was pitch black, and the further we drove, the more I realized I had no idea where we were. I was starting to feel a little uneasy, but I didn't want to make a scene or come off like I was overreacting. It was just a drive, right? And then she pulled the car over. We were completely alone. No houses around. No lights, no other cars. Just the sound of the engine idling and the heavy silence that hung between us. It was so quiet that my heartbeat felt too loud. The kind of silence that makes you feel like something's wrong but you can't put your finger on it. Amanda turned to me and with a weird smirk on her face said, "This is it. This is where we're going to hang out." The way she said it made me uneasy. It was like she was trying to be casual, but it just didn't feel right. I remember feeling a bit lightheaded. A part of me wanted to say something, to ask her what the hell was going on, but another part of me just wanted to get out of the car and leave, like now. And then it hit me. I couldn't. The locks on the door were completely busted. I realized that at that exact moment. I couldn't open the damn door. I pulled on the handle, tried the button again, but it was useless. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just taking me somewhere random. She had deliberately isolated me. I glanced at her. She was looking at me like she was waiting for something. She kept smiling, but there was something about it that made my stomach turn. She wasn't even blinking. I don't know how to explain it, but her face seemed too still. My mind started racing. Why had I been so stupid? Why hadn't I noticed sooner? This wasn't a casual date. This was something else entirely. She wasn't just weird or quirky. She was dangerous. I felt this sudden wave of panic hit me, and I knew I had to get out. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit there. Without thinking, I pulled on the door again, this time harder. I didn't know if the door would open, but I had to try. It clicked. It wasn't fully open, but the door popped enough for me to slip my body out. I jumped out of the car so fast that I almost lost my footing, but I didn't care. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't care where I was going. I just ran as fast as I could, through the dark, through whatever this twisted part of town was. I heard her car start, but I didn't stop. I just kept running, weaving through trees and bushes, too scared to even think straight. Somehow, I found my way to a main road, and eventually, a car pulled over to help. The driver was confused, but I didn't care. I just needed out of there. I ended up at a gas station, still out of breath and shaken up. I called a cab, took it straight home, and locked every door behind me. But that wasn't the end of it. Not by a long shot. The next day, I tried to reach out to James. I told him about what happened, hoping he could make sense of it. But all he said was, "I don't know who she is." "What do you mean you don't know who she is? You set me up with her." He just kept repeating, "I don't know who she is," like he had no clue who Amanda was. I asked if he was messing with me, but he looked dead serious, like he was scared. And that was the last time I spoke to James about it. I never heard from Amanda again. I didn't want to know who she was or why she did what she did. I was just happy to be safe, but part of me is still haunted by the thought of her. That smile. The way she looked at me. Sometimes I still wonder what would have happened if I hadn't gotten out of that car. It was supposed to be a regular Friday night, nothing too special, just a movie and some snacks to unwind. We had just moved in together, and everything was still fresh. The excitement of decorating the apartment, figuring out our routines and all that good stuff was still lingering. My boyfriend Luke was sitting on the couch, and I was in the kitchen, pulling out the bags of popcorn and chips. We didn't plan on anything too extravagant, just a lazy night in. The living room was dimly lit, just how we liked it when we watched movies. The glow from the TV set illuminated the place in a comfortable, cozy way. I set everything down on the coffee table and flopped down beside him. He didn't seem as relaxed as usual, though. I noticed it when I sat down. He was fidgeting, his fingers drumming on his knee. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he was just tired from work. The trailers were rolling, and as always, we started making fun of some of the ridiculous ones. I like to joke about how some movies were just ridiculous, so predictable, you could call the plot before it even started. Luke laughed, but his eyes kept shifting, like something was bothering him. I didn't say anything at first. We were both used to joking around in silence during the previews. But then something caught my eye. There was this one actor, some guy in a suit, looking all serious, like he was in some high-stakes drama. He was tall, dark hair, and had that intense expression. For a second, I froze. I mean, it couldn't have been right. The guy on screen looked exactly like Luke. Same facial features, same posture, even the same damn suit. I leaned closer to the TV, my eyes glued to the screen, feeling the oddest sense of déjà vu. I laughed a little, trying to brush it off. "Okay, that's creepy. Is that you?" Luke glanced at the screen but didn't laugh. His face had gone all tight. His usual easygoing demeanor vanished. "What do you mean?" he said. his voice sounding a bit too sharp. It wasn't angry, but there was something in it. I thought maybe he just didn't like the joke, but it didn't feel like that. There was an edge to his words, like something was off. I chuckled again, trying to lighten the mood. You sure you're not secretly an actor or something? 'Cause that's freaky. You even got the same outfit on. It was a stupid thing to say, and I didn't mean anything by it, but the way he shifted his weight on the couch, how his eyes darted to the TV and then back to me, made me feel uncomfortable. A weird tension filled the air. The laughter I expected never came from him. He suddenly stood up too fast, like he was trying to shake off some bad vibe. We need to go, he said. His voice had an urgency to it, but it wasn't like he was panicking. It was more like he was avoiding something, but I had no idea what. I blinked. What? Go where? We should leave. Let's just go out for a walk or something. I was caught off guard. What the hell was going on? This was way out of character for him. He was always the one who was up for a chill night, especially after a long week. And now, suddenly, he wanted to bail. I was just about to ask him why when he grabbed his jacket and headed toward the door. He didn't even look at me. I followed him, confused and more than a little worried. Luke, are you okay? What's going on? He didn't answer. He was too focused on getting out the door. The way he moved was weird too, like he was trying to avoid something, someone. I kept following him, wondering if I was overthinking this whole thing. Maybe I'd said something wrong. I mean, the whole situation didn't seem like a big deal at first, but the more I thought about it, the stranger it got. Why had he reacted that way? What was he hiding? Once we were outside, I tried again to get some answers. The cool air hit me as I stepped into the hallway. My mind was racing, but Luke wasn't saying anything. It was like he completely shut down. I didn't want to push him too much, but I needed to know what was going on. We stood there for a minute, silence stretching between us like a thick fog. And then, like the weight of it all hit him, Luke just snapped. His face went pale, his hands trembling slightly as he took a deep breath. He didn't look at me when he spoke. I don't want to go back there. Not yet. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Back where? I asked. My voice was shaky now, unsure if I should press or just leave it. He looked at me then, finally, eyes wild and searching. I don't know why you keep saying that, he murmured. I'm not the guy you think I am. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm not him. That was when I realized something wasn't just off, it was wrong. The more he said, the more everything felt like it was unraveling, like I was missing something big, something vital, but I didn't know what to do with it. It was like I was stuck, standing at the edge of something I couldn't even begin to understand. We ended up walking in silence for a long time. By the time we got back to the apartment, Luke was quiet. The tension that had filled the air earlier seemed to have left, but something else lingered, something heavy. I didn't say anything more, though. I wasn't sure what there was left to say. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the actor on the screen. I kept thinking about how the guy looked exactly like Luke, down to the smallest detail. It wasn't just the outfit. It was the way he held himself, the look in his eyes. It was him, or it felt like him. But that wasn't possible, right? Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe the whole thing was a coincidence. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. Something had changed, and I wasn't sure what it was. And when I looked over at Luke, lying beside me in bed, I couldn't quite tell if he was the person I thought he was, or if he ever had been. I've always been a bit skeptical about dating apps. I mean, it's not that I didn't want to meet someone. Who doesn't? It's just the whole process felt, I don't know, impersonal, like it was all about the surface level, swiping left, swiping right, a quick glance at someone's pictures, maybe a little read through their bio, and that's it. It's just weird how easy it is to make assumptions based on nothing. But hey, I figured I'd give it a shot. Maybe I was just tired of doing the same thing over and over, so why not try meeting someone new online? I didn't expect much. You know, the usual, small talk, some awkward silences, and then it fizzling out into nothing. That's the usual pattern. But then, one night, I matched with Sophie. Her profile stood out right away. It W as refreshing. No filtered selfies, no staged-looking photos, just candid shots of her out hiking, hanging with friends, laughing at some random thing. It didn't feel like she was trying too hard, and I liked that. She seemed real. It wasn't the typical polished, look at me, I'm perfect kind of profile that most people seem to have. So I messaged her, something simple, like, hey, you seem cool, tell me something about you that's not on your profile. And of course, she responded. At first it was just small talk. We talked about music, movies, travel. Typical first date stuff. But the more we talked, the more I started to notice something strange about the way she was asking questions. She asked about my childhood dog, Max, the mutt I had growing up. It was a weird question, one that I hadn't really thought about in years. Max had died when I was 10, and I don't think I'd mentioned him to anyone since. She just brought it up casually, like it was the most normal thing. Max was awesome, I told her. He was a mix of all sorts of breeds, but mostly a golden retriever. Super chill dog. She responded with something like, I bet he was. I remember you used to take him to the park by your house every weekend. You always talked about how he loved chasing after the tennis ball. Now, I was definitely starting to feel weird. I hadn't talked about that in forever, and it hit me. How does she know this? I didn't think I'd ever posted about it anywhere, so I just shrugged it off. Maybe she had heard it from a mutual friend, or maybe she was guessing based on what she knew. It's possible, right? But then she started asking more specific questions, like, do you still have your first car? The red Chevy? I remember you were so proud of that thing when you got it. I froze. How did she know that? My first car, an old, beat-up red Chevy Cavalier. I hadn't mentioned it in years. No one would have known about that unless they were really close to me, like family or old friends. But Sophie wasn't in any of my friend groups, and I definitely hadn't posted about my first car on social media. I played it cool, though. Maybe she just guessed? But no, it wasn't like that. She knew too much. It was like she had been there in my life, like she was filling in gaps I didn't even know existed. I asked her, half joking, how do you know about that? I've never mentioned my first car to anyone here. She didn't really answer, just laughed and said, you told me, last time. Last time? I asked, confused. But she didn't give me a direct answer. Instead, she just changed the subject, like nothing had happened. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. My mind started racing. Had we met before? I thought I'd remember meeting someone like her, but I didn't. No memory of it. I kept pushing it down. It's probably nothing. I'm overthinking it. Maybe she was just guessing stuff, reading between the lines. Maybe she's just one of those people who can pick up on details that others miss. But as the conversation went on, it just kept getting stranger. She started asking about my high school teachers, my best friends, even people I hadn't thought about in years. I mentioned once that I hadn't seen my old friend Charlie in forever, and she said, yeah, I remember. You guys used to hang out by that old coffee shop near the library. It was like she knew everything. Things I hadn't talked about in forever, things that didn't seem like they'd be easy to guess. I had to ask her again, this time more seriously. Have we met before? Because I swear, I don't remember meeting you, but you know so much about my life. And again she just laughed and said, last time. That's when I started to feel really unsettled. She was acting like we had this shared history that I couldn't remember. It was like she was filling in the gaps with information I didn't recognize, but she acted like it was all normal. It didn't make sense. Nothing about it made sense. So I decided to do a little digging on my own. I checked her social media profiles. Nothing. No sign of her anywhere. No mutual friends. Nothing in common with anyone I knew. It was like she didn't exist, except for the messages on the app. I kept talking to her, but the conversations became more strained. Every time she said, last time, I felt my stomach drop. I was starting to feel like I was losing my grip on reality. Did I forget something? Was she just playing some kind of sick joke? Or was she messing with my head, pulling information from some source I didn't even know existed? The last time she texted me, she mentioned something even more unsettling. Do you still remember the night we went to that lake? You told me everything about your parents and your plans for the future. I hadn't even gone to a lake with anyone in years. I couldn't remember the last time I went to one, let alone had some deep conversation there. But Sophie knew. She acted like it was this fond memory we had shared. By then, I was done. I couldn't take it anymore. I stopped responding to her messages. I even blocked her number, deleted the app entirely, and told myself I was just overreacting. Maybe it was all a weird misunderstanding, but the strangest thing happened that night. I checked my phone just out of habit and saw that I had a new message on the app. I opened it, and it was from Sophie. But this time, it wasn't just a message. It was a photo. A picture of me as a kid with Max, my childhood dog, sitting on the porch of my old house. I didn't recognize the photo. I had no memory of ever taking it. I never posted it anywhere. But there it was, clear as day. And beneath it a message, do you remember now? I deleted the app. Again, I uninstalled it, reset everything and went to bed. But the next morning, I woke up, checked my phone, and realized that my block on her had somehow been removed. Sophie's messages were back, and her last message was the same as the one before. Do you remember now? I've been trying to convince myself that it's just a coincidence, that maybe I'm just losing it. But deep down, I don't know what to believe anymore. Was she real? Was it all a trick? Or had we really met before, and I just forgot? I didn't expect a night out to go this wrong. I'd been talking to Kyle for a few weeks, and after a few decent chats, we decided to meet for dinner. He suggested this new trendy restaurant that had just opened. It was supposed to be this upscale, cool place with all these rave reviews, the kind of spot that's all over Instagram. I was honestly excited. Good food, good vibes, maybe a little flirting. The only thing that felt a bit off was that Kyle didn't want to meet at a regular time, like at 7 or 8, but more like 10. He said it would be quieter, and the vibe would be way better that late at night. I didn't think too much of it. Maybe he was busy earlier in the evening. I'm not exactly a night owl, but I figured I'd roll with it. So, I get to the restaurant a little after 10, and from the outside, it didn't look like much. The lights were on, but it didn't feel alive, you know? The usual bustling energy of a new restaurant was missing, and it gave me a weird feeling right off the bat. The place was located on a quieter street, tucked between some old buildings. It was one of those places you could easily walk past if you weren't paying attention. I walk up to the front door, expecting the usual crowd, people talking, servers in and out, the hum of music. But when I got closer, I noticed something strange. The door was locked, and not just locked, but it looked like no one had even bothered to unlock it. I pulled on the handle a few times, thinking maybe the staff just didn't notice I was outside, but the door didn't budge. There was no sign, no indication that the place was closed or anything, just this weird dead silence. I stepped back and looked around, wondering if I had gotten the wrong location or if I had missed something. As I was standing there, trying to figure out if I should leave or just wait, I noticed someone walking up the street toward me. Kyle, or at least I thought it was Kyle. He was coming down the sidewalk, grinning, looking pretty relaxed. I waved, and he waved back, walking toward me with a weird sense of calmness, like nothing was off. When he got closer, I asked him, "Is this place even open?" He gave me a reassuring smile and shrugged, saying, "Yeah, it's just a bit quiet tonight. I've got the key. They're still letting me in. Don't worry about it." I felt a little better hearing that, but something about the way he said it felt a little too casual. He pulled out a key and unlocked the door, gesturing for me to follow him inside. I hesitated for a second. The place definitely didn't look open, and there were no other cars in the parking lot, just mine and his. But he was already inside, so I took a deep breath and followed him. Inside, the restaurant looked exactly like what you'd expect from a high-end, trendy spot. Dark wood floors, dim lighting, exposed brick walls, the kind of place where the staff wears all black and you're afraid to touch anything because it looks too fancy. It didn't seem totally deserted, but it still felt off. The tables were set, the silverware polished, but everything was silent. There was no background music, no clinking of glasses, just the soft echo of our footsteps as we walked further in. Kyle seemed completely at ease, and he pointed to a booth near the back. "This'll be perfect, nice and private," he said with a grin, and I followed him, trying to shake off the weird vibe creeping up on me. The booth was at the far end of the restaurant, and when we sat down, I noticed something else strange. The dim light made it hard to see, but there was a bit of a musty smell in the air, like the place had been closed up for a while. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was there, just enough to make me question what was going on. I figured it could just be the place not being fully ventilated, or maybe it had something to do with the way it was set up. Kyle seemed totally fine, though. He wasn't acting weird at all. In fact, he seemed kind of pleased, as if everything was going according to plan. We started talking about random stuff, the usual first date chatter, work, hobbies, what movies we liked. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I glanced around a few times, half expecting a waiter or a staff member to show up, but no one did. It felt so empty. I told myself I was probably just being paranoid. It was late, the place was quieter, and maybe they didn't have staff working the late shift. The more I tried to convince myself everything was fine, the more it felt like the opposite. And the weirdest part? Kyle didn't seem to care at all. He was calm, maybe too calm, like he knew exactly what was going on, and that made me even more nervous. I told myself I was just overthinking it. But then I heard something, a sound coming from the kitchen. I froze for a second, and so did Kyle. It wasn't the normal sounds of a kitchen you'd expect, no clattering of pans, no chatter of the kitchen staff. This was scraping. Low and slow, like something, or someone, was dragging something heavy across the floor. I looked at Kyle, and he didn't seem to notice, or if he did, he didn't care. I kept telling myself it was just the sound of something in the back, maybe staff prepping food or doing some sort of maintenance. but something about it didn't sit right. It felt deliberate, like someone was trying to be quiet on purpose. We kept talking for a few more minutes, but my mind was elsewhere. I couldn't stop looking around, my eyes flicking to every corner, every shadow. Something wasn't right. At some point, the conversation slowed down. Kyle went to the bathroom and I was left alone at the table. I should have used the opportunity to leave, but for some reason I didn't. I stayed seated, watching the stillness of the room. The more I sat there, the more I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. When Kyle came back, he looked almost like he was in a better mood. He sat down, smiling at me as if nothing had happened. "Everything good?" he asked, but there was something off in his eyes, something I hadn't seen before. I nodded, but the moment the words left my mouth, I heard it again. This time, it was louder, the dragging sound, this time coming from a different direction. I stood up without thinking, my heart racing. I told Kyle I needed to use the restroom, but as I walked toward the back of the restaurant, I felt like I wasn't alone. There was someone else back there. I walked down the hallway toward the restrooms, but then as I passed a darkened hallway that led to the back storage area, I saw something that made me stop dead in my tracks. There was a figure just standing there, watching me. I couldn't see their face because they were in the shadows, but I could feel their eyes on me. My stomach dropped to my feet. I turned quickly and rushed back to the booth, trying to stay calm. I told Kyle that I wasn't feeling well and needed to leave. He seemed confused, but didn't press me too much. I grabbed my things and headed for the door, but as I reached the exit, I realized something. The door that Kyle had unlocked was now closed, locked. The key wasn't in his hand anymore. I turned to him, asking what was going on, but his expression had changed. It wasn't the calm, easygoing guy I'd been talking to earlier. He looked almost annoyed, like I was ruining his plans. "You can't leave," he said. His voice was different now, colder. And in that moment, I realized that maybe Kyle wasn't the person I thought he was. Maybe the restaurant wasn't the only thing that had been set up. Before I could react, I heard the sound again. This time it was closer, and then I saw more people moving in the shadows. They were coming toward me. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I ran straight for the back door, and somehow it was unlocked. I threw it open and didn't stop running until I reached my car. I didn't look back. Now, when I think about it, I wonder how many people Kyle had brought there. How long had he been doing this? The worst part is, I never found out. I blocked him after that night, deleted all his messages, and I've never gone back to that part of town. I have no idea what was really going on in that restaurant, but I know one thing for sure, it wasn't a date. I never thought a first date could turn into such a nightmare. It all started when I matched with Sarah on a dating app. Her profile looked promising, cute photos, similar interests, and a witty bio. We chatted for a few days and decided to meet up for drinks at a local bar. When I arrived, Sarah was already there. She looked even better in person, with a warm smile and stylish outfit. We hit it off right away, laughing and swapping stories over cocktails. She seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me, asking lots of questions about my job, hobbies, and background. At first, I was flattered by all the attention. But as the night went on, I started to feel a bit uneasy. Sarah's questions were getting more and more personal, especially when it came to my finances. She wanted to know details about my salary, savings, and career aspirations. I tried to steer the conversation in other directions, but she kept circling back to money topics. Things took an even weirder turn when Sarah started gushing about this amazing business opportunity she was involved with. Apparently, it was some kind of health and wellness company that was going to revolutionize the industry. The way she described it, it sounded too good to be true. Flexible hours, unlimited earning potential, be your own boss, etc. My scam radar was starting to ping. The whole thing reeked of a multi-level marketing scheme. I politely expressed skepticism, but Sarah wouldn't take no for an answer. She kept pushing, insisting I'd be perfect for it, and I had to get in on the ground floor. When I still wasn't biting, she suggested we continue the conversation somewhere more private. Against my better judgment, I agreed to go with her to a nearby coffee shop. Big mistake. As soon as we walked in, I realized it was a setup. 3 of Sarah's business partners were waiting for us at a table. They immediately launched into a rehearsed pitch about their company, complete with a flashy PowerPoint presentation on a laptop. I felt totally ambushed and cornered. Every time I tried to make an excuse to leave, they had a counterargument ready. They tag-teamed me with question after question, barely letting me get a word in. The pressure was intense. They kept emphasizing how this was a limited-time offer and I'd be foolish to pass it up. At one point, they even tried to get me to sign up on the spot and hand over my credit card info. That's when I knew I had to get out of there fast. I made up an emergency and said I had to go immediately. They seemed annoyed but finally backed off a bit. As I was gathering my things to leave, Sarah made one last desperate attempt. She grabbed my arm and quietly offered to sweeten the deal if I signed up that night, while giving me a suggestive look. I was shocked and disgusted. This whole date had been nothing but a ploy to recruit me into their pyramid scheme. I firmly told Sarah and her cronies that I wasn't interested and practically ran out of there. My heart was pounding as I speed-walked down the street, half expecting them to chase after me. Luckily, they didn't follow, but I still felt shaken up. The next day, I woke up to a barrage of messages from Sarah and the others, still trying to convince me to join their business. I blocked all their numbers and reported Sarah's profile on the dating app. Looking back, there were probably some red flags I missed early on. I guess I was blinded by Sarah's looks and charm. It was definitely one of the worst dating experiences of my life. I felt used and manipulated. What I thought was a promising romantic connection turned out to be nothing but a scam. The whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth and made me wary of online dating for a while. I ended up taking a break from dating apps after that fiasco. When I did start using them again, I was much more cautious. I paid closer attention to potential warning signs and tried to vet matches more thoroughly before meeting in person. I also made a rule to always meet in public places and have an exit strategy planned. The silver lining is that the experience taught me to trust my instincts more. If something feels off on a date, it probably is. It's okay to cut things short or leave if you're uncomfortable. Your safety and well-being should always come first. I'm glad I was able to get out of that situation without getting roped into their scheme. Some people aren't so lucky and end up losing money or getting trapped in these predatory MLMs. It's made me more aware of how these companies operate and prey on people's vulnerabilities. I've since had much better dating experiences and even met my current girlfriend through an app, but I'll never forget that disastrous first date with Sarah. It's become a crazy story I tell at parties sometimes. Most people are shocked that someone would go to such lengths just to make a sale. In the end, I learned some valuable lessons about setting boundaries, spotting red flags, and trusting my gut. While I wouldn't want to relive that night, I can appreciate how it's made me a savvier dater and more discerning person overall. I just hope Sarah and her associates eventually saw the light and got out of that toxic business. Nobody deserves to be manipulated like that, whether in dating or in work. These days, when I match with someone new, I'm much more upfront about my expectations. I make it clear I'm looking for a genuine connection, not a business opportunity. And at the first sign of any MLM talk, I'm out of there. Life's too short for bad dates and pyramid schemes.